Good morning. I wonder what things, if any, that you've done differently in the last few weeks, or whether there's things that you've done for the very first time. Well, I hope it's not too boring, but I'll just read some of the things I've done. I've rung, texted or written to people I wouldn't normally contact. We've been on some lovely walks and places locally we didn't know existed or we haven't been to for ages. We've discovered Zoom, not my favourite thing. I've stood on the step clapping. I've videoed myself reading bedtime stories to the children. We've tried lots of new, different recipes. I've started a study on the major prophets. I hope you're impressed. I haven't done that since my A-levels. I've done a lockdown diary and a photo album. I've tried to stifle coughs in supermarkets, painted half a shed, made bird feeders, and in a bid to try and improve ourselves, Steve and I decided to do some online courses. Mine was an introduction to geology, which I must admit has fallen by the wayside. Despite filling our days around walks, projects, keeping in touch with people, gardening and so on, which I love, if I'm honest, there's mornings when I wake up and my first thought is more of the same. And sometimes I don't feel full of the joys of spring. Maybe it's different if you've got to get up to go to a job, or maybe not. Talking to other people, I think most of us have days like this. To some extent, it's a normal reaction, human reaction to the limitations that lockdown brings to our lives. But it did put a question in my mind as a Christian, and that's, is God more of the same God? And what would he say to me and you when we feel like this? What is there about his nature that could help us or speak to us? The first thing that came to my mind was that he definitely isn't a more of the same God, but the very opposite. He's a dynamic God in all its definitions, which are, quote, characterised by constant change, activity or progress, positive in attitude and full of energy and new ideas, and a force that stimulates change or progress. We'll have some of that, please God. The second characteristic that springs to mind was, my God is a God of hope. Romans 15:13 says, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. And the third characteristic I thought of was, my God is a God who inspires. If anyone asks for prayer for a situation that seems very difficult or even impossible, I always think, but God made all of this from nothing. He creates from nothing. He can turn something rubbish into something beautiful, and sometimes in such a creative way that we could never think of. He's such a creative and inspiring God. And so, when you wake up, when I wake up and feel it's just going to be more of the same, let's just ask our dynamic, hopeful and inspiring God to grant us some of his dynamism, his hopefulness and inspiration, so the things we fill our days with will be truly touched and blessed by him.